Unraveled trust, stories of betrayal in blue across America. Police officers symbolize safety, tasked with protecting communities from coast to coast. Yet, some have broken that sacred trust, weaving deep scars on families and towns. From peaceful suburbs to lively cities, these 47 true stories reveal authority's darker side. Can you imagine a protector becoming a betrayer? Join us as we explore 47 haunting tales of officers who crossed the line. Forever changing lives. Each story exposes cracks in the system and the courage of those who stood up for justice. Have you ever faced a moment with law enforcement that inspired or unsettled you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We begin in a quiet Long Island town where one call shattered a community's peace. Startling detail. This case shocked the nation. It unfolded in a neighborhood where everyone believed they knew their neighbors well. Officer James Carter, a tragic emergency, Eastport, Long Island, a coastal haven of quaint homes, cherishes its tight-knit community. On February 3rd, 2021, sirens pierced its calm. A 911 call from James Carter, a 43-year-old former New York City officer, reported his 9-year-old son, Ethan, had fallen on icy steps and lost consciousness. Carter claimed he was performing CPR. Paramedics found Ethan unresponsive, his body at 74 degrees Fahrenheit, signaling hypothermia. Despite efforts, Ethan was declared deceased. Carter lived with his fiancée, Laura Bennett, and sons, Ethan and Noah, both autistic. Investigations revealed a grim truth. Home surveillance showed Ethan and Noah forced to sleep in a freezing garage without heat or blankets. The community reeled. How could a decorated officer hide such neglect? A pattern of cruelty. Eastport's serene streets, lined with family homes, hid a dark secret. The probe into Ethan's death exposed neglect in James Carter's household. Ethan and Noah shivered in an unheated garage without bedding or a bathroom. After Ethan soiled himself, Carter was recorded shouting, dragging him outside, and spraying him with cold water. Ethan collapsed. Carter delayed calling help for over an hour. School records showed the boys arrived hungry, cold, and in dirty clothes, scavenging food. Teachers noted bruises. Eastport's community was stunned. How had this gone unnoticed? Carter and Laura Bennett were arrested, charged with second-degree manslaughter and child endangerment. The case ignited public anger. Could neighbors have acted sooner? Ethan's story reminds us even trusted figures can conceal cruelty. Surprising revelation. Neighbors admitted hearing faint cries from Carter's home. They thought it was children playing. A point. Justice for Ethan. Eastport, a town of community festivals, grappled with grief during James Carter's trial in November 2022. Prosecutors presented chilling evidence, surveillance videos, school testimonies, and medical reports confirming Ethan's hypothermia and neglect. Carter's defense cited his service, claiming stress clouded his judgment. Prosecutors called his actions deliberate. The jury convicted Carter on all counts, sentencing him to 25 years to life. Laura Bennett faced the same penalty. The Suffolk County District Attorney called it a betrayal of duty, emphasizing the boy's suffering. As of March 2025, Carter has served 2 years in a New York prison. His earliest parole is 2046, at 68. Eastport questioned its blindness. Could someone have intervened? Ethan's tragedy urged vigilance, even among trusted figures. Unsettling fact. Carter's police badge was displayed in court. It symbolized his broken oath. Officer Nathan Brooks, a predator's scheme. Tulsa, Oklahoma, a city of oil heritage and vibrant arts, trusts its officers to protect. On July 7, 2014, that trust faltered. 59-year-old Margaret Hayes drove home when Officer Nathan Brooks, a 37-year-old patrolman, pulled her over. Off-duty in his patrol car, Brooks didn't log the stop. Targeting Hayes, a woman with a minor record, he forced her into an unlawful act in his vehicle, ignoring her pleas. Hayes bravely reported it. Brooks denied everything, but evidence led to paid leave. 13 similar complaints emerged. Brooks preyed on vulnerable women in Tulsa's Northeast, using his badge to silence them. His calculated tactics, like checking backgrounds, shocked the city. How could one officer evade scrutiny so long? Shocking detail: Brooks kept a hidden notebook listing victims' names. It was found during a search. The fall of Nathan Brooks. Tulsa's lively downtown buzzed with outrage by September 2014. Evidence against Nathan Brooks mounted. 13 women, aged 17 to 59, testified about his tactics: fake traffic stops, arrest threats, and unlawful acts in remote areas. Prosecutors revealed Brooks targeted women with records, believing they'd stay silent. In January 2016, after a month-long trial, Brooks was convicted on 18 of 36 counts, including 4 serious misconduct charges. The jury recommended 263 years. The judge agreed, ensuring Brooks would never walk free. Appeals were denied in 2019. As of March 2025, Brooks has served 8 years in Lexington Correctional Facility. His family claims innocence, planning appeals. Tulsa demanded answers. How did this predator operate unchecked? The case spurred misconduct reforms. Eye-opening fact: one victim testified from a hospital bed. She was recovering from Brooks's actions. Officer Samuel Reed, a fatal cover-up. Canton, Ohio, a city built on steel and community pride, once trusted its protectors. But on May 19, 2028, that trust shattered. 27-year-old Emily Parker, 9 months pregnant, disappeared from her home. Her 2-year-old son, Liam, was found alone in the living room. Dirty and dehydrated, he said just one thing: "Mommy's in the carpet." Police arrived to a disturbing scene. Furniture was overturned. A strong chemical smell filled the hallway. Bleach had soaked into the carpet. Emily's hospital bag sat by the door, untouched. Her sandals were placed neatly on the rug. Behind the couch, detectives found a toy, small, colorful, and blood-stained. The prime suspect was 25-year-old Officer Samuel Reed, the father of both Liam and the unborn child. At first, he denied everything. But on June 1st, he led officers to Emily's body, wrapped in a blanket and hidden in Ravenna Park. He claimed her passing was accidental during an argument and that he panicked. A neighbor's security camera captured Reed arriving at Emily's home around 1:45 a.m., dressed in plain clothes. He stayed inside for 47 minutes. At 2:11, his patrol car briefly blocked the driveway, then disappeared down 5th Avenue. 3 days later, investigators located Tara Holmes, a friend of Reed's. Surveillance footage showed her meeting him in a Walmart parking lot. She purchased bleach, gloves, and trash bags. When confronted, she broke down and admitted helping him hide the body. In court, prosecutors described the act as calculated and cold. The judge called it a betrayal at the core of public trust. In March 29, Reed was convicted of manslaughter, burglary, and concealment. He received a sentence of life without parole. Today, Liam lives with Emily's sister. Sometimes he wakes up crying. He points to rugs and whispers, "She's cold." Jarring truth: Liam's innocent words, "Mommy's in the carpet," cracked the case wide open. Officer Daniel Shaw, a kidnapping tragedy, North London, Ohio. a quiet farming town built on neighborly trust. On April 9, 2022, that trust shattered. 34-year-old Claire Hudson disappeared while walking home after a phone call with her fiancé. They had plans to meet the next morning. It was their anniversary. Instead, she vanished without a trace. Daniel Shaw, a 48-year-old former police officer, intercepted her in a rented car. He flashed a fake badge and claimed she had violated a state ordinance. Claire complied. She believed she was speaking to a real officer. There were no witnesses. No one heard her cry for help. Shaw was not just a disgraced ex-cop. He had been quietly dismissed 2 years earlier after an internal investigation into misconduct. The report never reached the public. He had since moved to a rural property in Warren County, surrounded by thick woods. That is where he took Claire. That is where everything ended. Investigators later found that Shaw used his old duty belt to restrain and silence her. He buried her body in a shallow grave behind his cabin, then cleaned the vehicle and burned her belongings in an old oil drum. He believed he had erased the evidence. For a week, the town searched. Flyers, vigils, prayers. The discovery came by accident. Hunters followed the smell. Her remains were found under leaves and brush, just beyond Shaw's fence line. During questioning, Shaw claimed he had been coerced by gang members, but surveillance footage showed he acted alone. GPS data, store receipts, and camera footage unraveled every lie. The darkest twist emerged in his basement. Detectives found keepsakes, a bracelet, a torn blouse, old ID cards, some linked to women reported missing in previous years. He was not new to this. In December 2022, Daniel Shaw was sentenced to life without parole. For Claire Hudson, justice came far too late. Officer Robert Hayes, a serial predator, Cincinnati, Ohio, a city known for its riverfront charm and historic pride. But beneath the surface, one man wore the badge while hiding a double life. Officer Robert Hayes, a decorated veteran of the force, had a reputation for calm authority. He was the officer neighbors waved to, the one mothers trusted to keep the streets safe. For nearly 20 years, he used that trust as a mask. Between 2002 and 2021, Hayes targeted women through dating apps, presenting himself as a kind and protective man. Behind closed doors, his tone changed. In his Dayton home, a neat single-story house with blackout curtains and soundproof panels, he committed acts no badge could excuse. Victims later described a chilling routine. Hayes would charm them into visiting, then shift into control. Some were locked in closets. Others were threatened with his service weapon. All were silenced by fear. At least 9 women reported him over the years. Complaints were brushed aside as consensual disputes or misunderstandings. No one wanted to believe that an officer could be the monster. That changed in 2021. One woman refused to be dismissed. Her injuries were documented. Her account was consistent. And she had one thing no one before her did: digital records, texts, photos, metadata. That opened the door. A formal investigation followed. 12 survivors stepped forward. Each one painted the same pattern. In March 2023, facing overwhelming evidence, Hayes pleaded guilty to 49 counts. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the sentence. 36 life terms. No possibility of parole for 30 years. The darkest detail came from a search team pulling up his floorboards. Beneath them, hidden in a steel box, was a handwritten journal. Page after page detailed dates, names, and descriptions, a predator's own record. The case shook the Cincinnati Police Department. It was not just about one man. It was about a system that protected him. The city has since vowed reform. But for the women who spoke up, the real victory was being heard. Officer William Grant, a drug-fueled massacre. Poughkeepsie, New York, a historic town along the Hudson River, where cobbled streets and old mansions speak of a quieter time. But on May 15, 2017, that illusion shattered. William Grant, 55, was once a respected officer. He had retired quietly years earlier. But behind the scenes, Grant had taken a dark path. Fueled by addiction and greed, he had become a player in the regional drug trade. He used his badge, even after retirement, to intimidate, negotiate, and conceal. The breaking point came when he suspected a rival dealer, Victor Morales, had stolen $250,000. Grant wanted revenge, not justice. He invited Morales to a cousin's bar under the pretense of settling a dispute. Morales didn't come alone. He brought his younger brother Diego, a friend named Javier Ortiz, and his cousin Luis Vega. It was meant to be a quick talk. Instead, it turned into an ambush. Witnesses later recalled seeing multiple vehicles leave the bar's parking lot late that night. Morales was separated from the group and taken to a rural property outside town. There, he was beaten and left to die. The others, Diego, Javier, and Luis, were executed and buried in a shallow grave nearby. No ransom, no warning, just silence. Months passed. Rumors spread. Families searched. Then, in January 2018, an FBI task force acting on an informant's tip unearthed the remains. Grant denied everything. He claimed he was being framed, insisting he was an animal sanctuary owner focused on rehabilitation. But investigators discovered the truth. The sanctuary had no animals, only cameras, drug scales, and burner phones. It was a front to launder cartel money. In May 2024, after a highly publicized trial, Grant was convicted on 4 counts of murder and sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. Poughkeepsie struggled to process the betrayal. A man once trusted to uphold the law had buried lives beneath the soil he claimed to protect. Officers betraying trust, a series of tragedies. The Midwest, heartland of American values, prides itself on unity, family, and faith in institutions. Between 2011 and 2013, that foundation cracked. 4 pregnant women, Sarah Mitchell, Laura Webb, Emma Hayes, and Laura Mitchell, were found lifeless in what appeared to be unrelated tragedies across Ohio and Michigan. Each woman was in her 3rd trimester. Each was connected to a local police officer. And each death was staged to look like suicide. At first, communities mourned quietly. Sarah was discovered in her Toledo apartment, a scarf around her neck, a note on the table. Emma collapsed near a lake outside Kalamazoo, her car parked nearby with the engine running. Laura Webb's death appeared to be the result of a fall down the stairs. Laura Mitchell, the final case, was found in a motel room, pills scattered beside her. No one suspected foul play at first. These were seen as isolated tragedies, but one detail connected them all. Each woman had been romantically linked to a police officer, and each officer had either denied the affair or failed to disclose it during investigations. Anonymous tips, growing pressure from the families, and persistent journalists began to stitch the stories together. In late 2012, a breakthrough came when DNA found under Sarah Mitchell's fingernails matched Officer Edward Blake, who had denied any romantic relationship. Phone records showed frequent calls, including the night of her death. A similar pattern followed with Thomas Gray, Robert Klein, and Paul Grant. Officers in separate departments, different cities, but eerily similar timelines and tactics. The truth unraveled. All 4 officers had fathered unborn children with the victims. Each feared the consequences: divorce, job loss, reputation. Rather than face accountability, they chose cover-up. Strangulation was their method of control, their misguided solution. They wore uniforms by day and orchestrated horror by night. Trials between 2012 and 2014 shocked the nation. In each courtroom, family members gave gut-wrenching statements. Laura Webb's sister read aloud from the baby's name journal. Emma Hayes' father held her last sonogram. The grief was unbearable, the betrayal unfathomable. The convictions came swiftly. Life without parole. No leniency. No second chances. These cases sparked national outrage and prompted internal reviews across dozens of departments. They also triggered legislation in Ohio and Michigan, requiring mandatory reporting of officer-involved domestic relationships, especially when pregnancy is involved. But the damage was already done. 4 unborn lives lost. 4 women silenced by those sworn to protect. Their stories remain a reminder that the badge without integrity is a weapon, and that behind polite smiles and pressed uniforms, darkness can still grow undetected. Devastating truth. Each officer used his badge to hide his motive. That betrayal was not just personal, it was systemic. Officer Thomas Lane, a murderous secret. Oxford, Mississippi, a picturesque town steeped in literary tradition, held its officers in high regard. That trust was broken on June 12, 2020. 31-year-old Vanessa Morgan was discovered lifeless in her apartment by her 9-year-old son, Tyler. The child wandered to a neighbor's unit, trembling and confused, clutching a crayon drawing and asking for help. When police arrived, they found Vanessa in bed. The apartment was eerily quiet. There were no signs of forced entry. Her phone rested on the nightstand, untouched. A freshly brewed cup of tea sat cooling on the counter. The door was locked from the inside. Something felt off. The investigation quickly turned toward 41-year-old Officer Thomas Lane, a veteran of the Oxford Police Department. Lane, married with 2 children, had been romantically involved with Vanessa for over a year. Witnesses later revealed they met during a neighborhood watch meeting and had kept their relationship secret. Surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store captured Lane entering the apartment complex's parking lot at 1:30 a.m., wearing a hooded sweatshirt and carrying what appeared to be a duffel bag. Minutes later, a camera near the building's back entrance recorded him slipping inside without using his badge access, a detail he would later fail to explain. Lane had left his phone in a locker at the police stables before arriving at Vanessa's apartment. After the incident, he returned to the station as if nothing had happened and sent a message to Vanessa's phone. "Hope you're okay. I'll check on you tomorrow." He believed the message would confuse the timeline, but forensics painted a different story. Text records, GPS data, and surveillance footage confirmed his movements. Ballistics matched his service weapon to the scene. Under pressure, Lane confessed, stating he acted in a moment of panic, fearing the affair would ruin his career and family life. In October 2020, he pleaded guilty to capital manslaughter and received a sentence of life without parole. Vanessa's family filed a civil suit and won a $2 million settlement. Oxford was shaken. A man sworn to protect had betrayed everything he represented. Disturbing reality. Lane's post-incident message to Vanessa wasn't concern. It was a calculated attempt to mislead investigators. Officer Michael Sutton, a fatal welfare check, Fort Worth, Texas, a city where cowboy heritage meets urban sprawl. In its neighborhoods, trust in local police is stitched into everyday life. People expect safety, service, and calm resolution. But on the night of October 15, 2019, that trust was shattered by a single, fatal decision. LaToya Simmons was 28 years old, a recent pre-med graduate. She had returned home to care for her ailing mother after college. She was the kind of woman who cooked Sunday meals for the entire family, who volunteered at her church clinic, and who always made time for her 8-year-old nephew, Jamal. That fall evening, she was babysitting him while his grandmother rested. The house on East Allen Avenue was quiet. Jamal sat beside her, playing a video game. LaToya scrolled through her phone. They didn't know someone was watching from across the street. A concerned neighbor had noticed the front door slightly ajar. No one had answered their knock earlier. Just to be safe, they called the non-emergency police line requesting a welfare check. The call was routed to a rookie officer, 34-year-old Michael Sutton. He'd only been with the department for 6 months. Older than most new recruits, but still green. He arrived alone. It was past 9 p.m. The street was dimly lit. Shadows cast by tree branches stretched across yards like silent fingers. Sutton didn't knock. He didn't call out. Instead, he crept into the backyard with his flashlight and body camera on. Inside, LaToya and Jamal heard a rustle outside the bedroom window. She got up, startled. Jamal remembers her whispering, "Stay here." She walked toward the blinds. In less than a second, Officer Sutton spotted her silhouette. He yelled, but almost simultaneously pulled the trigger. A single bullet tore through the window glass and struck LaToya in the chest. She collapsed. Jamal screamed. The body cam footage later revealed Sutton's voice trembling, realizing what he'd done. He hadn't announced himself as police. He hadn't used his flashlight to identify anyone clearly. There was no warning, just movement, then a shot. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but LaToya Simmons was pronounced dead at the scene. Jamal, shaking and crying, clung to a neighbor while officers secured the area. That night, Fort Worth changed. Public outrage followed swiftly. Protests erupted downtown. Activists and citizens alike demanded accountability. This wasn't just a mistake, it was negligence, they said. A young woman was dead, and a child had seen it happen. Sutton was placed on administrative leave and resigned 2 weeks later. But the outcry didn't fade. A grand jury indicted him for manslaughter. During the trial, Jamal testified in a quiet, steady voice. His words painted the room in cold dread. He remembered the exact second the window shattered. "She didn't do anything," he said. "She was just standing there." Prosecutors showed the body cam video, frame by frame. Sutton's defense claimed he believed the home was being burglarized. But the prosecution countered. That's why procedures exist. That's why officers must identify themselves. That's why training matters. In December 2022, Sutton was convicted. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in prison. He didn't speak during sentencing. LaToya's sisters did. Through tears, they described a woman who wanted to be a doctor, who stayed home to care for others, who died because someone didn't wait 2 seconds longer. Fort Worth was forced to confront painful questions. Why wasn't the call treated with more caution? Why didn't protocol prevent this? The department launched a full review. New training programs were introduced. Officers would now undergo de-escalation simulations before patrolling alone. But for the Simmons family, reform came too late. Jamal still asks why it happened. He's 10 now. Quiet. Thoughtful. He sometimes draws pictures of the night sky, and in each one, there's always one broken window. Striking truth. The boy's soft, steady voice in court silenced even the hardest hearts. A reminder that some tragedies echo forever. Officer David Perry, a teen's tragedy. Dallas, Texas, a city of ambition, energy, and deep divisions. In its southern neighborhoods, tensions between law enforcement and youth simmer quietly, until one night it all boiled over. On April 29, 2016, 15-year-old Jamal Ellis got dressed for a house party. He was a freshman in high school, loved by teachers and classmates alike. Jamal was known for his bright smile, quick jokes, and a dream of becoming an engineer. He played trumpet in the school band and helped his younger siblings with homework. That Friday night was meant to be ordinary. Music, friends, maybe a few photos posted online. The party, held in a residential home, started around 9 p.m. By 10, neighbors had called in complaints about loud music and possible underage drinking. Officer David Perry, a 30-year-old patrol officer with 5 years of experience, was dispatched to check it out. As Perry pulled up, several teens were already leaving. According to police logs, a separate caller had reported hearing something that sounded like gunshots. Perry approached the scene alone. In the driveway sat a sedan with multiple teens inside. Jamal was in the back seat. The car's engine was on. What happened next changed lives. Officer Perry claimed the vehicle suddenly reversed toward him. He stated he feared being struck and responded with gunfire. Multiple rounds were fired. One of them struck Jamal Ellis in the chest. His friends panicked. The car rolled forward, eventually coming to a stop. Someone called for help. Emergency services arrived, but it was too late. Jamal died at the scene. Initially, the official narrative supported the officer. Department spokespeople echoed Perry's statement. The vehicle had posed an immediate threat. The shooting was ruled justifiable, pending internal review. But Jamal's family wasn't satisfied. His parents demanded transparency, and they pushed for the release of the body camera footage. When that footage was made public, everything changed. The video showed the sedan moving slowly, away from the officer, not toward him. There was no lunge, no sudden acceleration. The shots were fired as the car backed out, away from Perry's line of approach. Within hours of the footage airing, protests began outside the police station. Signs read, "Justice for Jamal." Local news outlets questioned how such a critical detail had gone unmentioned. Perry was placed on administrative leave, then fired. A grand jury indicted him for manslaughter. In August 2018, he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. It was the first police conviction in Dallas related to an on-duty fatality in more than 2 decades. At sentencing, Jamal's mother took the stand. Her voice didn't shake. She said, "My son went to a party. He never came home. And for that, someone must be held accountable." At Jamal's school, his desk was left untouched for the rest of the year. His classmates wrote letters, lit candles, and wore shirts with his photo. He made everyone feel included, one student said, even on their worst day. The city responded. Dallas launched a department-wide training initiative focused on de-escalation and tactical response during youth-related calls. Policy around the use of force at non-violent gatherings was rewritten. Prosecutors committed to prioritizing footage reviews before determining justification for force. Jamal's case became a turning point, not just for his family, but for a city grappling with accountability. One mistaken decision ended a promising life, a decision that might have gone unquestioned without video. Revealing fact: the body cam footage showing the car driving away, not toward the officer, shifted the entire case. Without it, the truth might have remained buried. Officer Stephen Cole, excessive force. East Point, Georgia, a historically black suburb just southwest of Atlanta, has long valued community, family, and safety. But on April 11, 2014, trust in that safety was shattered. That evening, 24-year-old Gregory Ellis was visiting his girlfriend's apartment. A verbal argument between them escalated. Concerned, she called 911, hoping officers would simply de-escalate the situation. When police arrived, Gregory fled the unit on foot. According to witnesses, he didn't get far. After a short pursuit, he stopped, breathing heavily, and dropped to his knees. Officer Stephen Cole, a patrol officer with East Point Police, ordered Ellis to lie down. Backup arrived, and Gregory was quickly handcuffed. But what followed was not routine. Gregory, who had pre-existing medical conditions including heart sensitivity and asthma, appeared to be in physical distress. He was lying on the ground, handcuffed, visibly struggling to breathe. Yet Officer Cole believed Gregory was resisting. Over the next 30 minutes, body camera footage later revealed that Cole deployed his taser 14 times. Each time, Gregory could be heard pleading for help. He stated that he couldn't breathe, that he needed medical attention, and that he wasn't trying to fight. Officers on scene did not call an ambulance. One officer suggested waiting it out. Eventually, Gregory stopped responding. Paramedics were called only after he went completely silent. By the time emergency personnel arrived, Gregory had no pulse. He was transported to the hospital, where he was later pronounced deceased. The initial report cited a medical emergency, but within days, public pressure mounted. The Ellis family demanded answers. When body camera footage was reviewed by an internal affairs unit, concern turned to outrage. The footage captured not only Gregory's collapse, but his repeated, clearly spoken pleas and the lack of any meaningful medical response. An independent autopsy concluded that Gregory had died of heart failure, significantly worsened by prolonged taser exposure. Stephen Cole was placed on administrative leave and later terminated. A criminal investigation was launched. In December 2016, a Fulton County jury convicted Cole of felony manslaughter and official misconduct. The court sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. It was one of the rare instances in Georgia where an officer received a life sentence for actions taken during an arrest. Gregory's girlfriend, the woman who had initially made the 911 call, spoke publicly after the verdict. She expressed deep regret, saying she had never imagined the situation would escalate so severely. "I called for help," she said. "Instead, I lost the person I loved." East Point Police Department faced intense scrutiny. Civil rights organizations demanded taser policy reform. As a result, the department revised its use of force guidelines. New policies required mandatory medical evaluations after any use of a taser lasting longer than 5 seconds. Officers were retrained to recognize signs of medical distress in restrained individuals. In 2017, the city of East Point reached a civil settlement with the Ellis family for $1 million. The settlement did not admit fault, but acknowledged the need for closure. At Gregory's funeral, dozens of community members attended. Friends described him as quiet, gentle, and devoted to his younger siblings. His death, they said, felt both sudden and deeply preventable. The impact of the case reached beyond East Point. Police departments across Georgia reviewed their taser protocols. State legislators cited the incident while debating new use of force regulations. Sobering reality. Gregory Ellis's voice, recorded on body cam footage, was not aggressive or combative. He begged for relief. He asked to live. Those cries, now archived, became the most powerful evidence in the courtroom.